Welcome to the first IoT Rapid-Proto Labs pod webcast. In this first pod webcast, we are going to speak with Professor Wilfried Admiraal at Leiden University in the Netherlands. And Wilfried will be discussing with us the challenges, the complexity, the difficulties in creating a multidisciplinary cross-border curriculum for carrying out IoT rapid prototyping projects in higher education. So we'll talk with Wilfried about planning the curriculum and what are the challenges that he anticipates along with the outcomes that he's looking forward to in the future. So it's an exciting discussion. Join us. We'll begin right now. So this is our intro podcast, and I want to thank you very much for being brave and courageous and willing to do this. So I thought we could begin by just hearing a little bit about yourself and the center and what you're doing in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm Wilfried Admiraal. I am a full professor of educational sciences at the Leiden University, and I'm also a director of the Graduate School of Teaching, which is a center in the Leiden University. Originally I'm a social psychologist, but I'm already working in the educational sciences field for, I think, about 30 years. So actually I'm an educationalist, I guess, at the moment. And I'm really interested in doing a lot of stuff, mostly administration actually, because I'm the director of the institute, but in research perspective, I'm really interested in the use of technology, either in secondary education or higher education, and to connect the technology use in education with a social perspective. So it's the interest is really about how students and teachers collaborate, how they share experiences, share knowledge, that kind of things. So that's actually my domain of research. I want to do research on. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's enough about me. And then the institute itself, it's what they call the Interfaculty Institute. So we have 7 faculties in our university, and we are an institute in between. And we have 3 main parts in it, which is the first part is the teacher education program, which is actually the largest part of our institute. We have a educational service department, which is providing consultancy and projects for higher education, in particular the Leiden University itself. And the third part is the research program we have on teaching and teacher learning, both in secondary education and higher education, with about it's about 10 staff members, 45 PhDs, and about 10 postdocs. And in total, the whole institute is about 125 staff members. So it's a quite large institute here in the Leiden University. And this project is connected, of course, to our research program, especially the part on the use of technology in higher education. And in that perspective, we also collaborate with the universities of Delft and Rotterdam in a virtual center, which is called the Virtual Center of Educational Learning. And in that center, we collaborate with staff from Rotterdam and Delft on how we use open online education, higher education, and the relationship with teaching. So the project is also connected to that virtual center. Maybe that's about what the center is about.
And I I didn't ask you this in our preparation for this, but what really got you excited about this project in the beginning? I mean, just like in a few sentences, I'm just curious about that passion that you brought into the project, and what was it that,
Well, maybe the most attractive idea is behind the project or underlying the project is that I really liked to think about how we get students and teachers, but also students together, working together from different disciplines, from different countries, in different contexts. So how we can, well, that's actually the social perspective I have on teaching and learning. So how can we connect people together who are not connected? If you do not do something about it, they are not connected. So how can we connect them? And of course, how can we improve their learning by connecting them?
and I'm wondering about how you see this this context. I mean, from a pedagogical or point of view.
Yeah, so I think why the whole idea of having student teams, cross-border student teams, collaborating from multiple disciplines, why it's interesting from an educational perspective or pedagogical perspective, is that it gives some opportunity to not only to connect people, but also to work out, well, I would say, two underlying design principles, very generic design principles, which are underlying all kinds of effective learning in higher education, and which are that we try to activate cognitively our students, and that we try to bring them in a context which is related to what they are going to do, for instance, during the job or their own life. So it should be kind of authentic learning environment. And actually these two design principles are design principles for all curriculums in higher education in general. And I think having these remote labs or IoT labs are ways to to get these in real practice. So in this case, these students are working together. So it's all about collaboration, not only within their student teams, but also with students and teachers from other teams. It is all about authentic learning, because they are having a real task from real clients, and they have to come up with a real solution of a real problem. It's all about activity, so they have to produce something. It's not only that they have to work on a particular problem and try to solve it and then they are done. They really have to produce something which is evaluated by the clients. So it's really activating. And of course, the multidisciplinarity is because the students from the different countries are coming from a different program, actually. And the whole idea behind it is that they really need each other to come up with a product for the clients, which is evaluated in a positive way. So the expertise they have as a team, all three expertise domains are necessary to come up with a workable solution or a workable product. So the multidisciplinary is really necessary. You cannot do without the other expertise. And that's a nice, it brings together some design principles which are really, I think, really important in order to have effective higher education curriculums. So that's the way that's I like about the whole idea, and that attracted me to the project. Yeah.
That's quite exciting, and it's, I mean, of course, the like €1,000,000 question in a way is it a superior way to design this learning experience with valuable outputs for companies?
I completely agree. And the whole idea about the multidisciplinary teams is also, I would say that if they are going to work as an engineer or whatever, as a designer, they also have to come up with, they have to collaborate with their colleagues in order to come up with a usable, really good product for the clients. And also in their professional practice, they have to collaborate with people from other disciplines. So I think it's good that they already try this out during their higher education program. Yeah.
From a scientific point of view, from a researcher point of view, what are some of the challenges that you anticipate?
Yeah, well, maybe the biggest challenge is to convince both the students and the teachers that this kind of very complex activities are really valuable. Because I can imagine that if I would be myself a student attending a particular higher education program, I wouldn't see the additional value at first sight of working together, because it makes also things complicated. You have to communicate with people who use a kind of other language actually. They are used to another teaching style, but also they have their own agendas. They have to produce their own products in their own program. So that means that you have to really collaborate and come to a collective product, which is not the easy way to go through a higher education program. So, and we think it's very valuable as researchers or educational scientists, but we have to convince the students and teachers that it is valuable to do these kind of things. And if we do it right, I think in the end they will see the additional value, but I can imagine that they don't see that at the beginning, because it's complex. It's a complicated thing to do. Yeah. And maybe there's a difference between being a researcher and being a curriculum designer. Because so a curriculum designer thinks from what is best for the student, so what is best for the student learning in this phase or in higher education programs. And then I would say, well, at least in the Dutch culture and context, it might also be different in other European countries. But at least in our context, it's in higher education. It is good to give student autonomy to that they have to select what they want to do. They have to communicate with their peers in order to come up with their own research problems, etc. So because that is what that is a kind of student graduate we in the end want. But that might be different in other countries. But from a researcher perspective, I think it is what you just said, that I think we as a researcher we want to monitor more or less what they will do in pilot 1 and run from that, and maybe we also have some hypothesis already based on pilot 1, and then we can have a little bit more structured research, focused research in pilot 2 and even in pilot 3 a little bit more structure. And that's because as a researcher you want, I think it's important to build up your knowledge about this kind of context. So it's good to start in an open way, because we do not know much about it yet. So we have to actually explore what's going on. But of course, after first pilot and certainly after the second pilot, we should have some ideas about what are the most important aspects in this kind of setups to look at as a researcher. So it will be, from a research perspective, I think you are right that it will be building up in structure as well, or in focus. It will be more focused in the last pilot round than in the first one. Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts on this kind of multidisciplinary remote context, how it's challenging because you have three domains coming together, students, faculty, you could say even the client, I mean, the company, and then you have this remote project lab connected using tools like we're using right now, and it's not very natural. I'm looking at you and you're looking at me on the screen, and we're talking and trying to exchange thoughts and ideas. Do you have any thoughts on that aspect that may have come to your mind at this point? Is that important?
The only thing that comes to my mind is that it is challenging, that just what you just said, because it's already challenging to stimulate student collaboration just between students who are from the same discipline or the same country. But of course, it adds some challenge all the time. So if you have to collaborate from students from other disciplines, that means that you have to collaborate and communicate in different ways, and it adds a new challenge when these not only from another discipline but also from another country with another culture, other teaching culture. So that, and it adds, maybe the final challenge would be, which adds up, is that we use technology for it. So it's not that they are face to face working together on a particular product. No, they have to do it online. So they have to collaborate it at a distance, online, in multidisciplinary ways. So that's actually a challenge, but also it is really a challenge to look at it. Yeah.
We have a lot of challenges, and that makes it hard, but it also makes it very exciting. What are your thoughts about these constraints and tensions that we're going to face?
Yeah, what I think we should do, and actually we already discussed that a few minutes ago, is that we have to build it up so that it won't be 3 pilot rounds at the same level, but I think we should build up the complexity of the whole thing, and to start with, actually that's what we decided now, that we start with the labs in the 3 countries. We try to bring in as much as possible collaboration between student teams, so between countries, but if it's not fitting at the moment, we just decide to not do it. But of course, we will try to arrange that. But I think the cross-border thing at the moment is maybe a little bit too difficult, because it's not only about collaboration between different students from different countries, but it is also aligning 3 curriculums, which are originally, of course, very different. So that there are collaborating or having cross-border teams, there are quite some difficulties underlying it. It's not only a different culture or different language or whatever, different discipline, but it's also different curriculums, different experience with teaching, different scheduling in programs. So that brings a lot of difficulties with them. And then we decided, well, let's start with the student teams, what we want, that they have to produce something which is based on the client questions, and then they bring it back to the clients, that's evaluated by the clients. So the authentic material is there, the productive environment is there, the collaboration is there, and the multidisciplinary is maybe not there yet, but at a very low level, and that should be brought into the second round and even elaborated in the third round of the pilots. So building it up would be, I think, a good way to proceed.
And how does a first pilot, how do you construct a first pilot that makes the second stage more effective in a way?
Yes.
Because you're talking about a gradual intensity of multidisciplinary input, and then but a lot of other pre-design going in, and I'm wondering, like, this, where is the link here between pilot 1 and pilot 2 then with the multidisciplinary part? How do you design in this transition for the second step, or is it more about institutional level constraints, timelines, courses, existing curricula, existing methods, and just becoming familiar with what those are, and then with that knowledge then going into the next step? Or is it about doing something in pilot 1 to, let's say, ease the entry into the second stage? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think it's both. So that the first part is also true, that we have to get used to each other, that we have to think in the same way and get used to each other's curriculums and etc. So that also helps. But I think a particular evaluation of the first pilots would also be helpful. But that's about the things we are doing. For instance, collaborating with the arena, with the clients, etc. So that can be improved for the second round, and maybe to connect it to connect the first round and the second round with the multidisciplinary groups might be a way that we group the teachers of the 3 labs, that we make actually their own teacher group, that they are not only teaching their own group in the first round, but also that they share their experiences with the other teachers in the other countries, and also discuss, maybe even at the end of the first pilot, in a structured way, what can be changed in order to have this multidisciplinary collaboration in the second round. They have their own task. That they have their own group, their own teacher team, and they have their own task in addition to just teach their group, but also think about how to bring in the multidisciplinary part in the second round. I think that would be a way to come from the labs in the first round to the second round. Yeah.
That's interesting angle. In the digital learning world, I've heard the phrase pedagogy before technology. Because a lot of people are carried away with all of the learning management systems and the MOOCs and all of the other things that are going on, and often we're reminded to come back down to earth and think about the pedagogy and what that means. But I'm curious about your thoughts here about what does technology mean for this project, or is it really more about pedagogy in a way?
Yeah, well, I hope it will be pedagogical driven. At least the learning part, so the collaboration, the communication, etc. That the whole setup of the learning teams, that will be pedagogical driven. And of course, in order to realize particular learning principles, you need technology. And that's aligning with your idea of having pedagogy before technology. But technology also comes in, of course, in the products they are going to make. And then it is only about technology. So in this way, technology in this project has 2 functions, or 2 roles. It is a way to support the pedagogy, but it is also necessary for the products they are going to create for the clients, because this is about technology. Very positive about the whole challenge. So the excitement of having student teams from different disciplines collaborating. So that's not changed. And but I also what is changed now in compared to the beginning of the project or even before the project, I see how complicated it is, how difficult it is to. Well, maybe I didn't had good thoughts about it in the beginning, very detailed thoughts about it, and yet just thought, well, it's a good idea. Anyone will say this is a very good idea, so just let's do it. But that is not how it works. So it's more complicated. I realize it is really more complicated to realize this kind of maybe good ideas. So maybe at the level of the idea, everyone agree, but it is not that easy to do. And that's something I realize now. Yeah.
Project yourself forward now to the end of year 2020 when this project is ending.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think we will be then from your perspective? How envisioning this outcome that might, whatever it might be?
Well, I think I would already be very satisfied if we have run a number of nice learning labs with nice outcomes, with a lot of rich data and experiences. So I'm not very ambitious in having a structure or something like that, or so I'm quite modest about our ambition. I think that I hope that we during these 3 years we have good experiences with running this kind of curriculums and labs, and that we learn a lot about, and that we can share our own learning outcomes with the world or with Europe. How to run this kind of things, how to design it, what do you have to do, what you don't have to do, or even not do, shouldn't do. I hope that we learned a lot about it and that we can share it with others.
Wilfried Admiraal, thank you. Danke wel. Thank you very much for this. This is our first podcast. We have no idea what is coming in the future, so it'll be really interesting to come back to this discussion and reflect on it and see what we talked about, and then compare that with the journey that we're going to take in the next few years. But thank you very much for your contribution, and good luck with the project.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and good luck with the project, you too. Yeah.
Danke wel.
Okay, bye-bye.